Thoughtful Connections, a memory care podcast, aims to provide general information and insights about dementia and related topics. The content shared is not intended to be medical advice or a substitute for professional medical or clinical guidance. The purpose or goal of this podcast series is to help inform and educate family members considering memory care for a loved one. With us, as always, is Elizabeth Thompson, Arrow Senior Living Regional Director of Memory Care. Well, welcome, Elizabeth. I was going to say a little bit more.
Okay.
I was going to say it's a pleasure to be here with you.
Oh, well, it's a pleasure to be here with you, Charlie.
I meant it a little bit.
I know, just a little bit.
Just a little bit. I see that you found your way to your green memory care chair without too much direction.
I did.
And I found mine as well. Now, today, we're going to take a deep dive into a subject that we've touched on multiple times in other episodes. Our topic is the art of redirecting.
I love it. I'm glad we're talking about this. I think it's something that we cannot not go over enough because it's one of our biggest tools in our toolbox. And yet many people miss this opportunity and get led down a rabbit hole with their person living with dementia.
No rabbit holes. We're gonna set the record straight with the art of redirecting today, but let's first start with the fundamentals, okay? In case someone listening or watching doesn't know what redirecting is.
Okay.
So exactly what is redirection in the context of memory care we're talking?
Okay. So redirection is a technique that caregivers use to gently shift a person who's living with dementia, their attention away from something that's distressing or unsafe or unproductive to something more positive.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So, or calming. It's not about tricking them or about controlling them. It's about meeting them where they are and helping them feel safe and supported.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So, but the way I understand a redirection, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you're actually utilizing them. It's kind of like maybe compared to judo. Okay. So you're using their energy to maybe turn them in another direction or into another place or another doing something differently. Is that a way to describe it?
That is. But for some reason now the song is in my head. Everybody was kung fu fighting.
Well, kung fu and judo are not the same thing.
Well, I don't know. It just made me think of the song.
Okay, and just so you also know, you're not a very good singer, and so probably people listening and watching don't want to hear you sing anymore.
Well, this is probably true. This is probably
all right.
true.
Now, as a friend, I can tell you that.
Okay.
So, go ahead, kung fu.
Yes, kung fu. It is subtle, respectful, and rooted in empathy. So,
okay, all right. So why is this technique so effective with people that have dementia?
Well, because people living with dementia, they have changes cognitively affecting their memory, reasoning, impulse control, especially if you're talking about someone who's living with like frontotemporal dementia, where they lack that awareness. They can get stuck on a thought or a behavior or even saying one word over and over and being repetitive in that. And so arguing with them and trying to correct them, it only makes things worse. And that's where we talk about that rabbit hole of just, it's just not going anywhere because the arguing is just taking you deeper. But redirection works because you're, acknowledging or validating their feelings, but then you're offering them something new, a new focus, something that's comforting or positive or even familiar to them, or you're getting them engaged in something that is distracting them from that original rabbit hole.
Sure. So you're not saying no, you can't do this, or no, don't do that. You're saying, well, how about this instead?
Correct. It preserves dignity for the person who's living with dementia, but it also reduces stress. And that's not just for the person living with dementia, but also for the caregiver. The things that we teach on the podcast are to, yes, help the person who's living with dementia, but also help the caregiver.
Absolutely.
Because we know how it can be very challenging with a lot of these very common behaviors or expressions that people with dementia are going through.
Absolutely. So give us some examples of redirection in action and how you've seen it work.
One of the most famous ones is, I've got to go home, 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 I'm trying to get out the door, I've got to go home. And what we don't want to happen is the caregiver to say, this is your home. Because in that moment, that person doesn't think it's their home because they're saying they need to go home, and that's not home. So we don't want that to happen. What we want is to perfect that art of redirecting to the person's at the door saying, I want to go home, I need to go home, and they're trying to, get out the door and take off. We want them to be able to say, tell me about your home. Where do you live? Do you live in the city or do you live out in the country? Before we go, let's go put on a coat. I'm going to redirect them to get a coat. I'm not saying we're not going home. I'm not saying that they're wrong or that they're lying or that they don't know what they're talking about. I'm just acknowledging and then redirecting. So that's a good example. Another one is someone saying that they need to go to work, even though they've been retired for years. Instead of saying, you don't work here anymore, say, well, let me help you get ready. Let's go get dressed. Do you want to wear the blue shirt or the red shirt? Mm-hmm. And somewhere in there, during that time, that person with dementia has a reset. And what's interesting is for people living with dementia, because we've talked about vision changes and how their world is getting so much smaller. So if I'm living with dementia and my world is right here, and you redirect me to something behind me, I've got to reevaluate everything. And it's like a reset button. Mm-hmm. So many times just facing in a different direction can take someone who is escalated about having to go home or having to go to work or anything mm-hmm. to a different place in their mind. Mm-hmm. Just by a different scenery.
Have you ever seen or been involved in a time when the individual was so fixated on going home, we'll mm-hmm. use that example, that even the redirection didn't take them away from that fixation? Yeah, talk to me about that.
Yes. So probably the thing that just comes to mind first, and it's not the Kung Fu fighting song, but I had a lady that I was visiting in community, and this lady had just gone on an outing with the community. Mm-hmm. And as she came back, she had some confusion. And that's another topic for another podcast, but sometimes outings are great, and sometimes they can cause a lot of anxiety. And for this particular resident, she was really distraught when she got back, and she was looking for her car. And I just have to say, when an 85, 90-year-old woman who is sweet as she can be comes up to you and says, I can't find my effing car, it is really hard not to kind of giggle a little bit. But she was distraught. She could not find her effing car. And so instead of arguing with her, I said, you can't find your car? And she said, no. And she's still yelling and cussing and kind of disrupting the whole neighborhood, because she's spewing out every cuss word she can think of can't find her car. And so I said, well, where did you last see it? I don't know. And she's kind of mad at me. And I said, what color is it? Brown. I said, okay. I said, let's go look. Let's look out these windows. And so we just started looking out the windows, and it took a while. We went to a lot of different windows, and she's still angry but that she can't find her. At this point, I've now discovered it is a brown Buick. She can't find her brown Buick. Now, mind you, she has not driven her brown Buick in at least 6 years, because that's how long she's been at this community. And so I'm thinking, wow, she remembers she used to have a brown Buick. That's pretty cool. But as we're going through the neighborhood, looking out the windows, looking for the car, I'm like, is that it? No, that's not it. She is starting to calm down. We're also walking. So I'm getting out some of that excess energy that she's got reserved for escalating her expressions. I'm getting it out in a more positive way. We finally get to her apartment. After doing all this walking, we end up at her apartment, and I'm like, please, at this point, I'm just praying, let there be something in her apartment that we can talk about that will get her off the car. And there is a picture of her with this huge fish. And I'm like, is that you? And she's like, yeah, my husband and I caught that. And so it probably took it felt like an hour, but it was probably only 15 minutes, but it took a while to get her to calm down. But finally we see this picture of this fish and that she caught with her husband on a fishing trip. And now we are talking about their fishing experiences. Mm-hmm. But that one was one that it did take a lot longer to de-escalate her.
Mm-hmm. So redirection does work, but sometimes it takes longer than others.
Yeah.
Depending on how deep are they're into it, it sounds like.
Absolutely. I had another lady that she forgot that she could no longer stand and walk, and she was in a wheelchair. And I would say to her, she had always been single, very hoity-toity, very classy lady. And I would say, if you'll hold tight, I'll take you to the country club for lunch. And she'd say, oh, that'd be lovely. But then there was one day she's trying to get out of her wheelchair. And I said, if you'll hold tight, I'll take you to dinner for the country club. And she says, I'm never going anywhere with you. So it worked a lot of times, but it didn't work that time. So you have to give yourself grace and know that what works one day may not work the next. And that's why you got to come up with a lot of different ideas on redirection.
Right. Yeah, you have to be creative and
yes,
spontaneous, it sounds like.
Oh, yeah.
And gentle as well.
Yes. Yeah. It's the heart of person-centered care.
And it's all about, again, as we almost say every podcast, it's about joining their world and not dragging them into yours. Yeah. You join them.
You join them.
Where they are, don't you?
Yeah.
So you've described what redirection is and how it works. So what are some tips for caregivers who want to get better at redirection?
Staying calm. We talk about that a lot, and reassuring them, not arguing with them. Use distraction tools if you can. Knowing that person is going to be very important. Knowing what their likes are, what their dislikes are, and even like we talked before in an episode about their triggers. Mm-hmm. What kind of things to avoid in those situations. But like we talked about how just changing their vision from one site to another can kind of reset, so can placing something in their hands. So that's another tip. However, I don't recommend placing something in their hands if they are angry or escalated to the point where you think they might throw whatever's in their hands.
What might some examples be to put in their hands?
Anything, a drink, a snack, a blanket, a book, a magazine.
The fidget.
A fidget thing, yeah. What's important to them? I mean, do they have a trinket or something that is important to them? Putting that in their hands. That's where that knowing them is important. But that can also reset. Not always, but like I said, that's where we have this toolbox in our head, and we've got to have lots of different things to choose from, because going to the country club, well, that's not going to work right now. So I'm going to walk away and I'm going to come back with something different. What am I going to grab from my toolbox this time? So knowing their history, don't argue, don't try to correct them. And most importantly, practice patience. It's an art, not a script. And it takes patience and practice.
Mm-hmm. And that's definitely some great advice. And I'm sure that as the skill grows over time, that, with experience and love and understanding, I would think. And the more you do it, the better you get at it.
Yeah, absolutely. And just think to yourself a new word, a new place, or a new activity.
Okay.
To kind of reset their mind.
Yeah, and certainly. And if one doesn't work, try another.
Yep.
And sometimes, as you've mentioned, you may just need to step away and come back.
And that's what's so amazing for people that are living with dementia. You can walk away for literally 60 seconds and come back and it be totally different scenario. Mm-hmm. So there is power in turning away for a minute.
Mm-hmm. Take a breath, count to 10.
Take a breath, count to 10, come back, and you may be their new best friend at that point, or they may still be stuck on, finding their car.
Sure.
But you've kind of given yourself a reset too.
Sure, that's important. As well.
Gosh, yeah, very.
So, Elizabeth, do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to share about the art of redirecting?
Oh, I just think, every successful redirection is a win, and pat yourself on the back because you're one step closer to peace and dignity and connection with that person. But don't beat yourself up if it doesn't work, because even for, and I mean, I'm not saying I'm all that because I'm not, but I have had a lot of training and sometimes it doesn't work. You just, sometimes it doesn't work, and that's okay.
Well, you try to redirect me all the time.
Oh gosh, it's exhausting.
And sometimes it does work. Well, Elizabeth, that's very well said. And thank you for providing us with another memory care tool that we can put along in our toolbox, along with a user's manual. I think you provided as well.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. And thank you all for sharing your time with us. At Arrow Senior Living, we believe in the power of a chuckle, maintaining a childlike sense of wonder, and defending the dignity of others. Until next time, this is Charlie Johnson with Arrow's Thoughtful Connections, a memory care podcast, wishing you fond memories filled with moments of joy. And remember, if you've met one person with dementia, you've met one person with dementia.
You can find Thoughtful Connections, a memory care podcast, anywhere you listen to podcasts.